What you gonna do when it all comes back to the place that you never wanted it to come back to? And where you gonna roll when the bottom drops out and you got no place to go? Who you gonna trust when trust is a must? You better roll with the rest of us. So pack your bags and all the faith you can, cause it's about ready to hit the fan. Come to the ready. 2012 brought about the re-election of an antichrist. Come to the ready. You don't believe me, just look deep into the soul of the liar's eyes. Come to the ready. The Constitution of our nation is under attack. Say it. Come to the ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pierce Kibbe, and I'm the founder of Practice Inc., a veteran-owned business located here in Lakeland, Florida. We hear a lot of talk about situational awareness, and we hear keeping your head on a swivel, being aware of your surroundings, a lot of different shortcuts to it. But what does situational awareness actually mean? And that's the issue that a lot of people have, is that they don't know exactly what it means other than what they're being told by somebody else, whether they're an instructor similar to myself, or it's just somebody that they happen to be talking to and they're saying, oh yeah, you got to maintain situational awareness. You really got to listen to what's going on and watch what's going on. And now everybody might be looking around going, oh my gosh, what is going on? What am I looking for? Because they don't know. So it's really not helping. So what we're going to do is going to be a 6-part series. All right. This is going to be the first video, and then the subsequent videos will wrap this up over time. And this will be posted over the next week. And what we're going to start off with first, and this was a presentation that I did at the Self-Reliance Expo here in Lakeland, Florida, and this is what I did. So I'm just breaking it down into smaller chunks for everybody that may not have been able to attend that. So first and foremost, you got to establish a baseline, right? So looking at this picture right here, there's a couple different things that can come to mind. Obviously, this is going to be a more urban setting, a city, right? What's the baseline of this? Well, you see a lot of different people in some slacks, they're in some business, suits, some are in just shirts and ties. So obviously all that fits in. Now, what would not fit in with that baseline? What would be an anomaly? Something that normally should happen, but isn't, or doesn't normally happen, but is. So if you suddenly had, and that we're going to assume is going to be a very busy crowd, you're going to have a lot of people interacting, it's going to be very noisy. What happens if it suddenly goes quiet? Is that normal? Well, it can be, depending on what's going on. If somebody's coming in that's getting ready to speak, if a presentation is getting ready to start, of course, it can change that dynamic, that atmosphere of the crowd, right? What if you suddenly see everybody just start to run? Okay, obviously that's going to be bad. That is not something, as far as we know, that should normally happen, right? So that is going to be something that's out of place. If we see somebody that doesn't fit this baseline for this area, as in their clothing, their behavior, their body language, the atmosphere, any biometric cues, anything like that they're giving off, then we need to be aware and just kind of take notice. Now that doesn't mean we just see one thing and we're instantly, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. No, we have to have a group or a cluster, a conglomeration, whatever term you want to use, of different hints, different clues that are actually triggering us going, hey, you know what? That isn't right. The hair on the back of your neck, that gut feeling, that sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, and that's what you're going with for establishing that baseline. So, again, that's my name. That's my company, Practice Inc. And motto is making tactical practical. So, definition of situational awareness, right? Wikipedia definition will go off that. It's the perception of environmental elements and events with respect to time or space, the comprehension of their meaning, and the projection of their status after some variable has changed. That variable, such as time, or some other variable, such as a predetermined event. It involves being aware of what is happening in the vicinity to understand how the information, the events, and one's own actions will impact the goals and objectives, both immediately and in the future. So what does that mean to you? Well, obviously we can't interact and go back and forth. I can't do a Q&A with you in person. However, you can feel free to interject in the comments all you want. Mainly, this is just a layman's definition, and we're just going off a standard definition just by Wikipedia, right? But when it comes to that situational awareness, again, we're wanting to focus on what is happening that shouldn't normally happen, or what is happening that normally shouldn't happen, right? We're looking for those anomalies, those things that just don't fit the baseline, and we're looking for more than one. We're wanting 2, 3, or more of these different clues that are saying, hey, you know what? That's not right. Maybe we should pay a little bit more attention. Look at the bigger picture, right? So what does it mean to you, and how can it hinder you or help you? Do you already have a system you utilize? There's plenty of systems out there. We're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. Whether it's a color-coded system or whether it's a numbered system, you go, I'm in level 1, level 2. Whatever works the best for you, you can obviously go for that. But the main purpose of this is really kind of to refine what situational awareness is and what you really need to be looking for, right? Do you consistently practice it? How? How do you consistently practice a system if you do have it? Now, it can be at a professional capacity, or it can be in a just everyday civilian type capacity where you're walking around to and from work or with your family or something like that, right? What have you learned, and how do you feel that it is an effective method? Okay? Is it something that you've been practicing long enough to get comfortable with it? Or are there some things that doing and practicing this system that you're trying that you found that really just don't work the best for you or your environment? Have you modified it yourself personally to kind of fit your environment, your baseline a little bit better? And if so, how? Feel free to share in those comments, right? Drills. Have you developed any drills? One that you're more than welcome to use and that I recommend to my students is pick the beginning of a week, start on a Monday, and do this for 7 days, okay? And you don't have to stop. Obviously, you can change it and different things like that. But start with a shirt color, okay? Pick one solid color that you're going to focus on. It can be one that really stands out really well, like a red or a yellow or a green. Or it can be something that is a little bit more subdued, a green, a khaki, something like that, or a gray. But pick one color that's a standard color. And every time you see that color, just make a note of it. You can use a notebook, carry a notebook around with you. You can also use just your iPhone or whatever type of phone that you may have, your smartphone, be it as it may. But keep track of how many times on that first day of the week that you see that color shirt, and then throughout the week, pay attention. What changes are you going to notice? Imagine getting a car, right? You go out, you're shopping for a car, and you pick out a color, you pick out a make and a model, whatever your choice is. You go, oh man, this is going to be great. I never see this color. I never see this car out there. I'm going to go get this car. Now you go, you pay the money, you do everything you got to do, and now you get the car. Now what do you usually do? Well, now you see not only that same car everywhere, but oftentimes the very same color of the car. Why is that? Well, it's because now it's in your conscious mind, not your subconscious that's just constantly picking up, but now it's in that conscious mind going, I am actively driving this car around. Now I'm seeing it everywhere. Now, it can be frustrating to think, oh man, did everybody go get the same car the same day I did? No, it's how much and how much you're paying attention and how that got into your conscious mind to where you're actually paying attention as opposed to your subconscious, which is picking and assessing millions of things throughout the day that you're not even aware of. And that's where that gut instinct, that tickle on the back of your neck, that's where that comes into play, because that's your subconscious that's picked up on those anomalies that are not fitting the baseline. And they're trying to let you know, hey, something's not right. And you need to stop and focus on those, right? Just to acknowledge them. Always think about whatever drill you're using, whatever method, how can it be improved? It's about constant improvement, right? Streamlining. Now, how can it hinder or help you? And these are just some, they're not going to be all of them, right? So pros, it can be as simple as you want or need. Again, with the military, we kept it with KISS, keep it simple, stupid. We want it very simple, so under stress and under different environmental conditions, it's very easy to refer back to reference, right? But can it be more complex than it needs to be? So we can make it as simple as we want, but inherently, oftentimes, I know myself, I am guilty of it, I will make something way more complex or difficult than it really needs to be. You know, as a Fleet Marine Force corpsman with the Marines, I was always used to having a medic bag just full of all sorts of different gear to address all the different situations that I could come to. As time and experience came to be, I started to streamline that and refine it down to what I really knew that I could use or need immediately in the field, and then what I could leave back at the vehicle or at the base or whatever that we were working out of, and not have to worry so much about. But at least I had a resupply of supplies staged over at the vehicle or wherever we were at, and then I had what I needed to get the job done. But that came with experience and time, and of course more knowledge. Has it been proven to work in multiple locations in different environments? You want something, as the saying goes, 1 is none, 2 is 1, right? And as I tell people all the time, every item in your pocket, every item on your person, in your bag, whatever it may be in your vehicle, it needs to earn its place there. Now, there are plenty of great gear out there that will do that one thing that you really, really want, and it looks really cool, and you know, you're like, oh man, I'll get that. But it only does that one thing. Well, if you look around, you do some due diligence, you can find maybe something that doesn't look as tactical or whatever, but it's actually more practical, right? So it does more than one thing. Can it seem overwhelming? Well, of course, because we can make it more complex than it often needs to be. And sometimes, instead of trying to figure out if it works and prove it in multiple environments and making it say, hey, you know what, it can serve more than one purpose just by adapting a little bit or changing this variable, right? So, it can seem very overwhelming. Pros: increase recognition of your environment or vulnerabilities. Now, for some, this can be a little daunting because they start to see things that they can't believe they missed throughout the day. And it can be a little bit disconcerting, right? Because you realize this stuff that's been going on that you have not been paying attention to has been going on consistently in the areas that you walk to and from work, in the areas that you walk to your vehicle. You know, maybe that area that ATM is, you started paying a little bit more attention and realized, you know what, my vulnerability is increased and so has my risk because of the time of day. The con is, look, it's a system, but it's not infallible, right? And realistically, you cannot remain 100% aware 365 days a year, 24/7. It is just not physically and mentally possible. That is why in different environments, whether it be the military as a point man, you're rotated off. In firefighting, you're not going to be fighting that fire in that same position on that hose the whole time. You get rotated off. You have to have that downtime to let your brain and process everything, right? Because it can be overwhelming. Because there's so much going on and your senses are so overwhelmed depending on the stress and the environment, and much less the location. Biggest thing is, it can be a valuable tool if you utilize it properly. That comes with practice. That comes with taking that little training, putting it out there, and just practicing and going, you know what? That worked, but I could do this a little bit differently. Let me try this. Or hey, you know what? Let me go ask that guy, Pierce Kibbe. I'll just send him a message. Or ask another instructor. Just find out and try to streamline it and make sure that everything you do serves more than one purpose if at all possible. Now you got to remember that this is going to rely heavily on the senses, which are significantly reduced at night where it's often needed. What's the number one sense we rely upon? For the majority of us, it's our sight. Working and going to and from locations at night, most of the time we often feel that little bit of sense of urgency, maybe fear, depending on what you're doing, where you're working. But you're going to have a little bit of overwhelming because your sight is reduced, and that's the number one sense that we rely upon. So now you're going to have to really kick into place those drills, those skills that you've utilized and hopefully honed over time by paying attention to things that you should avoid. You know, dark alleys at night, go a little bit wider around them, don't hug the wall. Carry a flashlight, right? Flashlight's got multiple purposes. I can tell you I've been carrying one for years, not even just before as a medic with the military, or a scout leader, or search and rescue, or anything like that. Flashlight's used all the time. You know, sometimes whether it's just you're going somewhere, it's a little bit dark, you're trying to look at a house. How many times have you gone and tried to look at a house, the power's off, you'd really like to see in there a little bit better, flashlight come in handy. Something's wrong with your car, you're trying to assess it, man, that flashlight could really come in handy. So it's got multiple different tools, right? So when we want to talk about establishing the baseline, that's our foundation, right? How do you build a house? Well, you got to start with a good solid foundation. If you build it on a rocky foundation or an uneven foundation, don't make that time for that foundation to really settle and get a firm hold. Just like with training, whether it's firearms or any other area, you still have to start with the basics. You can't go 0 to hero just like that. You got to start somewhere. So what is a baseline? So establishing a baseline of your environment consists of observing and understanding what fits in and what does not based on your location, your environment, the climate, the clothing, the emotion, interaction, and behaviors. And again, that's not going to be all of them. There can be more in there. But again, what is it that you're trying to focus on? What fits that baseline and what doesn't? Are there anomalies and what are they? Here in Florida, what is an anomaly during the summer? Well, if somebody's wearing a really heavy jacket or a very heavy backpack, that's an anomaly. Okay, that's not something that's normal. It gets very hot and very humid down here. So that does not fit the baseline. Understand that these can all change with the time of year, any special events, or the geography, right? We got a lot of political rallies and different things going on around over. We had one here today where I live. So that dynamic, that baseline, that traffic, everything, I did not take into account the traffic was going to be that bad. So on my way to work, I got stuck in there. But that was my own fault. Why? Proper previous planning prevents poor performance, right? So I did not realize that the event starting at 3 when I'm headed to work earlier was going to end up snagging me in it. So that's my own fault for not taking that into account. You know what fits in and what doesn't in your daily lives. You just need to take the time and observe it. So what does that mean? If you go to a place of work, or your lunch place, your favorite lunch place, your favorite coffee place, your best friend's place of business, whatever it is, or some big special event, concert, whatever, you have a pretty good idea if you go there routinely what fits in. You have an idea of what the type of people are there, the personality, the clothing, you know, even vehicles, all those different things you actually have a pretty good understanding of, but you have to take the time and observe it. Because if you don't, you miss stuff all the time. How many times have we been in the car, we're driving from one location to another, and you know, we often get that road hypnotism, okay? We're not really paying attention, we're just going to get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And we look off to our left, our right, or in front of us, and we're like, oh my gosh, that construction's going so quick. I didn't even realize that they just built that place. Why? Well, we're really not observing and taking into account what is going on in our surroundings and our location. Because you're going to notice, oh man, you know, traffic's gotten worse. I wonder why. Well, that's because maybe they narrowed the lane to do that road construction or that construction on that building. But we have to pay attention, not get so emotional and frustrated and just blow by it, right? Can't be on that autopilot. As we talked about, anomalies. So what is happening that shouldn't or normally doesn't? What isn't happening that should or normally does? That's those anomalies that you're looking for. And that's why observing and paying attention to your surroundings is so important. A method that we use for survival when we're teaching survival training or search and rescue and everything is stop, right? We're all familiar, hey, stop. You know, it comes into a place with a lot of other things, firearms, self-defense, all those different trainings. All we're doing is breaking stop. Military, we love our acronyms, right? So we're just breaking stop into 4 different words, right? So obviously S is going to stand for stop. Just stop what you're doing. If you notice something, that gut feeling kicks in, stop what you're doing. I mean, obviously take into account your situation, your location. If you're in the middle of a busy intersection, don't suddenly stop. You're probably going to get hit by a car. Be safe about it, use that common sense, but get to a safe location and stop. Think about what you saw, what's bothering you, what maybe you're seeing that you don't normally see, or what you're not seeing that you normally should see, right? And that's where the observe comes into. So for the O, that's observe. You're observing what's going on and trying to assess, hey, what bothered me? What is it? What's that anomaly that just really got my attention or tickled the back of my neck? And then you make a plan. Now that plan can be, you know what? I observe the situation. I realize, you know what? It's nothing big. It's just traffic from an event going on. I need to have another route planned in. And that's something you should have anyways. You should always have multiple routes. Try not to have that same routine. Yes, A to B, it may be the best way to go the same route every time. But you don't want to be predictable all the time, right? It's nice to vary it up because you never know what you might see. But once you stop, then you think, you observe, and then you make a plan. Now you got to act upon the plan, right? Now how should it act upon it? You need to be decisive. You need to be aggressive. Don't second guess or hesitate. I know I'm just as guilty as many of us out there. When you're taking a test and you're looking at it and you're going back and you're kind of reassessing it and you go, oh man, I don't think that's the answer. And then you go and erase that answer and change it, and what happens? You were right. You were right the first time. Your instinct was correct, but you didn't trust it. So you second guessed it, ended up changing it, and then you suffered the consequences. And then once you've made that plan to be decisive and aggressive and not second guess or hesitate, what do you have to do? You have to act upon it and you have to follow through. Don't start to do it, I don't know. By then it may be too late, depending on what that situation is, right? That's where that training, that's where that skill, those experiences, all that comes into play. Because you're looking for those anomalies. And the more anomalies that you start to see, the more decisive you need to be about your plan. And you really need to be stopping and thinking. But that's all situation dependent, right? Keep in mind, action versus reaction. What always wins? Action. You can be super, super fast, but again, you're still having to react to some action that somebody else is instigating, right? So you prefer to be on the action side, but if you're having to be on the reaction side and adjust to that reactionary gap of recognizing what's going on, the intent of it, then deciding on a plan, whether that's through your short-term memory or it's having to access your long-term memory. Now you get into the whole fight or flight response with your limbic system, right? Now, are you going to fight? Are you going to flight? Are you going to freeze? All that has to take into place, and that is why you're always going to want to be on the action part if possible. And if you are on that action part and instigating it, stick with your plan, be aggressive, don't hesitate, and always follow through, right? Now, one of the books that I've had to read over the years for my profession in executive protection and high-risk security and different things is Colonel Jeff Cooper's Principles of Self-Defense. Very short book, very good reference, been around a very long time, and Colonel Jeff Cooper was very well regarded in regards to this and many other trainings that he gave. And it was based into colors, right? So color codes, much like what we use today or the government uses for, we're in an amber alert or silver alert for, missing child is an amber alert, silver alert is for a senior citizen, there's an issue, and then there's other codes that go through it. But this is what he went off with. So there was code white. Okay, you feel secure whether or not you're actually safe. Realistically, you should only be in code white when you're asleep. Otherwise, code white is not where you want to be. Okay, I mean, you can look, you can see awareness is switched off. You're just unaware of what's going on in your environment. You're just going on like a zombie, right? And that is what attackers are looking for. That is what criminals are looking for, because that's opportunity. You are presenting them an opportunity because it's not their fault that you're not paying attention to their surroundings. You're bringing it upon yourself. Code yellow. Now this is where you should really spend the majority of your time, right? Unless there's an active known threat or that sixth sense really kicks in. But you should always be in code yellow, okay? That means you're just cautious. And you get your awareness switched on, you're actually paying attention to your surroundings, looking for those anomalies. You're going to be aware, but you're going to be relaxed. You're not going to be really tense, just queued up, looking everywhere all the time, because you're going to look kind of silly. And you're going to draw more attention to yourself as opposed to trying to pay attention to what else is going on, right? You're going to have a 360-degree peripheral awareness of such environmental dangers as what we talked about. Secluded doorways, entries, alleys, any psychological triggers, adrenaline dump, or attacker ruses, right? Some people can try to lure you in, and that's where you have to use that common sense. I've helped numerous people that have been stranded on the road. Why? Man, I've been in that situation before, and it's just really unfortunate. You can plan, you can prepare, but in the end, sometimes there's just nothing you can really do. But you need to be aware of your vehicles. Look behind any large objects, dark areas. So as you're approaching your vehicle in the middle of the night, is there a vehicle that's parked really close to it? Why is there a vehicle? If there's no other vehicles out there except your vehicle and somebody else's that's really parked close to your vehicle, why? Where do criminals like to park? Well, they actually like to park right near your driver's door. Why? The majority of us go where? Our driver's door. And by that time, we're kind of in condition white. We're ready to just be done with the day. It could have been a really long day, a very stressful day, poor night of sleep before, could be holiday time, crime increases because more opportunities. So just pay attention. If you see a vehicle like that, approach the passenger side first. Do a walk around of the vehicle. If you've got security at your place of business or wherever you're at, a mall or whatever, you can always ask and say, hey, would you mind walking me back out? Or you go back and you just go back inside and shop for a little bit, ask a friend. But pay attention to those different anomalies and different things like that. Okay, code orange. Okay, now you're in danger. There's something that triggered your sixth sense, that gut instinct, that feeling on the back of your neck, raised hairs. Something caused you to be more alert, right? And now you're really taking into account, you've stopped and you're really observing what's going on, maybe even formulating a plan at that point in time, but saying, hey, what's going on? Okay, that vehicle, as I'm approaching it, I notice there is a vehicle right next to my vehicle. It is on my driver's side. You know what? I'm gonna go kind of do a wider walk around of it. Oh, it looks like there's one or two people in there. They're really kind of paying a little bit more attention to me than I would think would be normal, right? Okay, now you have to have a plan. What are you doing? If you don't have an option, the place of business that you were in or whatever is locked, there's no security, and that's all you got, maybe you go ahead and get on the phone with somebody and just start talking to them. You call a loved one, you call a friend and say, hey, look, I'm walking towards my vehicle. There's a vehicle that I see parked right up next to mine. I'm really kind of uncomfortable. Do you happen to be around? Is there anybody around to come down here? Or, hey, start giving a description. Yeah, it's a white in color van. It looks like out-of-state plates or whatever. It's got a couple people in the front. At least go ahead, put all your stuff in the vehicle over on the passenger side, and then, with the key fob already in your hand, go ahead and jump in. Now, of course, the other option you could do, it could be an accident, right? You could be, as you're approaching the car, you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Those key fobs can be great inventions. Why? Because they have an alarm most of the time that you can activate. What do alarms do? Well, for the most part, they still draw attention. But if you start setting off that alarm on your vehicle, oh, your hands are full, it was an accident, maybe those folks leave. Maybe they get a little bit offensive. Hey, what you doing that for? Well, accidents happen, silly me, right? But it's something that you could do. Okay, you're looking for any situation that is really drawing your attention. Somebody giving oral indicators. They're being very verbal, saying profanity, or that they're going to do some action to you or act. And then they may focus on you, right? Get that tunnel vision, the same thing that we get. Now, what you need to be doing is, of course, looking for an avenue of escape. If you can get out of there, don't stay and fight if you can get out of there. Just get out of there. Get to a safer place. call for help, do whatever you got to do, right? Do you have any potential weapons available? Do you have a flashlight? Do you have a car key? What do you have? Something that you can use to help fend somebody off if at all possible. An umbrella, right? And then you have to make that decision. Remember, once you make that decision to take action, you have to be decisive, you have to be aggressive, you have to act upon it and follow through, and you can't hesitate, right? Code red, this is where it's hit the fan. Okay, you were actively in contact. Hopefully that plan that you made, you stuck with, you didn't hesitate, and you're going through it, okay? You tried to avoid the threat, maybe it didn't work. Now you're dealing with that limbic system response to the fight or flight. Either you're trying to run away, you might be trying to defend yourself, or just attack back. Now that you know there's an active threat, you got to deal with it, right? Again, don't stand and fight if you don't have to. Get out of there. Too many variables in that, okay? Again, that's that decision. You've made that decision in the code orange, right? Started to assess, make a plan. Now you're following through on it. If you do have to use physical self-defense techniques because they're necessary, only use the level of force appropriate to that threat, right? Don't escalate the level of force. In other words, don't treat someone who pushes you because he is rude like someone who is trying to stab you with a knife. Okay, you're escalating that if you're taking something into a possible deadly force condition when they are not typically using that type of force, right? They don't have the ability, the opportunity, or their main part is jeopardy. Your life is not in immediate danger from grievous bodily injury and or death. That is where you may have to evaluate your level of force and change it as necessary. Using it, like we talked about, never be in white. Spend most of your time in yellow, okay? Constantly be aware and alert. Always kind of shift from yellow to orange as the situation needs. And that's mainly if you're seeing some potential threats, different danger areas, right? Think about not if then, when then. Think about when that person walks this way, what will I do? Where are their hands? Hands are what you always watch in security and doing fugitive extradition, different things like that. We always really had to watch the hands because those are going to be what's going to hurt us, right? Think about what would you do, or when that person jumps out just ahead of you, what are your plans, right? Where can you go? As a pilot, you're typically taught, even when it all hits the fan, what do? You fly the airplane. But as you're flying the airplane in a proactive manner, not reactive, proactive, you're constantly, as you're flying through the air, looking for possible landing spots. Oh, if my engine failed, I ran out of gas, a bird strike, whatever, where's my nearest airfield? And where is the nearest safe area that I can land? And that's what you're looking for. Where's the next safest area that you can safely land, or walk to, or run to, or escape to save yourself or others? So the 6 domains of situational awareness, right? And this will be the main part. So we had to establish the baseline, and now we're going to go into this part. So you got the baseline in the center, and everything else goes around it. You got your kinesics, your biometrics, your proximics, your geographics, your iconography, and your atmospherics. And all together, those work with the foundation. Now we're going to focus on the top one, okay? Kinesics. Wikipedia defines kinesics as interpretation of body motion communication, such as facial expressions, gestures, nonverbal behavior related to movement of any part of the body or the body as a whole. As a kid growing up, I know from my personal experience, I was taught, okay, first impressions are everything, but first and foremost, as a kid, eye contact with an adult, right? You show them that you're paying attention to them. Don't cross your arms like this. Why? Well, I was always taught that comes by as rude, disrespectful, non-interested in what's going on. And those are just one of many. Don't look down, don't look around, don't be constantly moving, shifting left and right, don't be twitching, all those little different things for that body language, because your body will speak a lot more. So, kinesics describes the use of the head, torso, and limbs. Those basic 3 parts, right? The interpretation of these body movements helps you to identify those clues or to identify those who don't fit in and predict others' behavior based on the subtle cues which can indicate their intentions. So body language. When you're talking about fighting, if you've ever watched somebody that's getting ready to fight, you've ever been in a fight yourself, you're typically taught to look for a couple things. What do you do? What have you ever done if you were getting ready to fight? Well, your hands are going to start to tense, right? You're going to make those fists. You're going to start to get that tunnel vision. You're really going to start to focus more on that individual that may be your potential attacker that may be coming after you, or that you may be going after them, right? So you're taking all of this in and assessing this. A lot of times they'll lower their head over their shoulders and lean in toward you, right? And then of course their stance. How are they standing? If they don't have a really good fighting stance like you're taught in martial arts, then they're not going to be very aggressive, right? And that's really not a clue that you're going to be paying attention to, but pay attention to that stance. Pay attention. What are they doing? Is their face starting to get flushed as that body gets that adrenal dump, and your respirations, are they starting to breathe hard? All those different things are just body language. A significant amount of the communication is nonverbal. We do a very large amount of our communication non-verbally. Again, with the arms crossing. If you're in an interview for a job and you happen to notice, or you're the interviewee or interviewer, and you're not really interested, you realize that at this point, this individual really isn't the right fit for the job or whatever, or their body language is communicating something different than what they're verbally trying to tell you, right? If they're angled towards the door, their lower body, their limbs is angled towards the door, and they're constantly checking their watch, what does that tell you? They're ready to go. They've already oriented their bottom, their limbs, their torso that way towards the door, and they keep checking their watch because something else is going on. How many times have you ever been in a meeting and you see somebody doing that, whether it's your boss or otherwise? You're going to then look for those multiple groups or clusters of the clues and cues, not just the individual. Don't just focus on the individual. I was going through some more executive protection training earlier this year, and we were focusing a lot on surveillance and surveillance detection. And towards the end of the week, we were actually out there against an active team that was attempting to do surveillance on us, on myself and the other student. And we're driving in and around all over New Jersey and everything. And they're just, you start to get that heightened level of awareness, and now you're really starting to focus on, hey, what about that car? Well, why is that car still following me? Do I need to do my surveillance detection route yet? Do I need to go to an alternate route? Where are those fatal choke points? Where's a good standoff footprint for surveillance? All those different things are coming into play. And, to be honest, I had a couple false positives on things that I thought for sure 100% they fit all the criteria of things that, doing surveillance, if I was doing surveillance from having done surveillance, this is what I would do. And you know what? I was wrong. And I thought at the end of it, I was like, oh yeah, I told my instructor at the end of it, once the exercise was done, oh yeah, it's that guy. I was wrong. But that is a very humbling experience, and it's a very learned experience. That not everything you see is what you think that it may be, good or bad. And you want to establish whether these clues or these are going to be any of the following. Are they dominant versus a non-dominant clue? Are they uncomfortable versus comfortable? Are they interested or uninterested? And these are the indicators, right? So, dominant versus non-dominant. Posturing, bullying, territorial, loud. So when you're talking about dominant, posturing, you're trying to make yourself larger. You're standing up straighter, you're squaring those shoulders, maybe you're kind of closing that space and getting really in close to somebody's personal space. Now you're trying to intimidate them, right? Or somebody's maybe done it to you. Maybe you're getting a little bit territorial, you're moving in towards an area you weren't paying attention to, and now you're kind of encroaching on somebody's territory. What's another one? Loud. They start to speak louder. I told you I didn't want you, that kind of stuff. Now, non-dominant, looking down or away. They're not making that eye contact. They're hunched over. They're attempting to appear smaller. Look, pay attention to your surroundings, and you will see this. It's very fun to watch, so to speak, when you go into a location, public or whatever, and you get into a good safe position, look, pay attention to the group sitting at the tables. What is their body language? Is it more dominant or non-dominant? Do you see somebody that is kind of more posturing? Oh yeah, they're really very verbose, talking very loudly, or are they kind of looking down and away? Are they kind of hunched over, trying to make themselves appear smaller and not draw attention? And that can come into play in your advantage in different scenarios, but we're really not going to get into that this one. But we will talk about that later on, okay? Uncomfortable versus comfortable. Okay, uncomfortable, twitching, constant moving of the body or limbs, constant shifting or blinking, rapid breathing, and oriented towards the doors, right? I'm ready to go. I'm constantly looking at my watch. I'm checking my phone. I'm constantly moving around. I'm pacing. Imagine speaking, and that's what somebody got up there and did, was just a lot of ums and uhs and pacing back and forth. As opposed to other times, you'll see that power stance, right? You'll see the steepled fingers like this, or you'll see as they're leaned up, really taking up that territory, that power stance on the podium, they're really getting out there and directing in towards you, right? Or they're rapid breathing. As opposed to comfortable, relaxed posture, they're very calm, it's very even breathing, and they're mirroring or mimicking the speaker. Now, a great video series that I really like that I came across on Netflix is called Brain Games. And they do some really great videos. They go in depth on a lot of different things. And one of them they actually did was talking about mirroring or mimicking. And we'll just touch on this briefly, but basically what they did is they took some individual just testers coming in and out, and they sat them in front of a computer. Okay, and on that computer screen, there was a face. Now they started the face off, and what they didn't tell the people was that this was an actual person with computer software and everything watching and mirroring them, right? So that individual that was in the screen started off very sullen, very not interested, and you could tell that the other people were starting to get uncomfortable, and they really didn't know what to do. So they started to talk a little bit more, started to, just get a little bit more verbose on some things, because they didn't really know what to do. They were just very uncomfortable. Well, then the next time, what they did is they had that same individual and the same group of people go through, and they had that individual who was the other side of the screen. He actually started to interact more with them, right? So as they're talking or telling a story, he's smiling and going along with their body actions, and what you see is that they're mirroring each other. And it was just really interesting. So if you ever get a chance, check out that series, Brain Games. It's got a lot of really great information in there, and it's just really well done. Last but not least on here is interested versus non-interested. Now, guys, we could probably have an all-day class from our wives, our spouses, girlfriends, or ladies that are able to tell us these are the signs that your lady is not interested or paying attention to you. And of course, us guys could probably do the same for them, right? But interested, leaning in, closing that distance or the proximity, and oriented towards the speaker. If my body language, instead of oriented, my limbs, my torso is oriented towards that door, again, we talked about non-interested, right? But if I'm oriented towards you, and instead of leaning back, kicked away, I'm actually leaned in, closing that distance, right? That's because I'm interested. That's because I'm like, man, I can't wait to hear more about your story, what you have to say. As opposed to the reverse of creating that distance and getting further away, or changing that body language. Or my torso may be here, but I keep glancing towards the door, or I keep looking up at a clock, okay? Constantly checking watch or phone or exit or no eye contact for non-interested. Like we talked about, if I'm not interested, I'm gonna find something else to do. Twiddle my thumbs, look at my phone, check the clock, check my watch, go through my book if it's a class. Many of us have been through death by PowerPoint. I know when I was going through the FEMA incident management courses as I went through the different levels from basic to advanced, it's a lot of death by PowerPoint, but the instructors are what makes the difference on that class, and they can make or break a PowerPoint for you. So that concludes this part of it. Okay, the next part is going to be on biometrics, as you saw from the next video, but that will be done throughout the week. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to post them in there. And I hope this will kind of help you to understand when it comes to situational awareness, what that head on a swivel, pay attention to your surroundings should be. All right. Again, my name is Pierce Kibbe, and I own and am the chief instructor for Practice Inc., located here in Lakeland, Florida. Remember Proverbs 22:3. The prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. So have a good night.